Welcome to the latest episode of The Independent. I'm Pete Sampson, joined as always by my co-host Matt Fortuna. And Matt, we're recording this on Friday, which is a day after Marcus Freeman had some kind of small roundtable discussions, some of which I've already written about for The Athletic, some of which will come out next week as well. We can talk about that later, but I guess just in terms of you've read the transcripts and sort of taken in what he had to say, I don't know if there were any great revelations there, but what sort of struck you as interesting as Marcus Freeman is now 2 months away from opening his fourth preseason practices?
Yeah, it felt very big picture, Pete. A lot of culture talk, a lot of, last year it was all, hey, you're going into your third year as a head coach. Now it's like you're an established head coach. And we've seen it's that time of the year, it's list season. And Marcus Freeman's high up there on everyone's coaching list. I mean, he's top 5 on most. And I've heard some pushback on that. And I think there's a healthy debate about whether he is or isn't. I think these things are very flexible. And if they go 8-4 this year, he'll be down in the 20s probably. I mean, that's just the way this thing works, coming off a national championship berth. But I think the USC story is probably the biggest headline, just coming from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And that's something we've spent a great time talking about, debating about over the last week and a half. And I think we'll continue to do that until there's resolution. I don't know when that resolution comes, but the contract does expire after this year, as I reported last year. And the clock is ticking to get something done in that regard.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see that series going away. Pretty much everything is on the table in college athletics these days, so I wouldn't ever rule it out. But I mean, like Marcus Freeman was pretty clear. I want to play them every year, as long as I'm the head coach here. He kind of said it doesn't matter when we play them, which maybe there's some wiggle room there for the Big Ten to move the game up. He didn't say I'll play them anywhere because the game should be played in Los Angeles and South Bend. So I hope that, Pat Forty reported this on Sports Illustrated that USC was interested in having it be a neutral site game. And I'm just like, you guys are out of your
terrible idea.
minds.
I've talked to people in Notre Dame who were like, no, terrible idea. Even if it was Shamrock Series, terrible idea. This is a game that needs to be played on campus.
Exactly. So hopefully USC will not sort of kowtow to a head coach who doesn't deserve to be kowtowed to in Lincoln Riley. Because I don't, it's been fascinating to me to sort of see this USC response from people who are a little bit more entrenched in the program than even their head coach, and being like, what? You want to do what? Because we don't want you to do that.
So my only pushback to that would be Lincoln Riley does not have the juice to make that decision there right now at all. Now he's going to wear it if it doesn't happen, but I would argue Lincoln Riley is only employed right now because it's too expensive to fire him. And that could again be the case going into next season. I don't think him and the administration are on the best of terms. This is not an administration that hired him. I think the USC fan base result has been not on par, but similar to Notre Dame's as far as this is a rivalry. We want to keep it. Why would we get rid of it? Again, Lincoln Riley's a head coach. He has made enough public comments that suggest that he's not really all that interested in keeping this game alive. But you don't turn over 95 years of history to a coach coming off a 7-5 season or whatever they were. That's just not how it works. I think this would be an administrative decision. And I don't think the administration there is like, let's get rid of the Notre Dame series. I think they're very aware of how their fan base feels, and they need all the goodwill they can get when the football program's struggling the way it is. I just think it's, especially after last year where they lost, I believe, every single Big Ten road game, none of which, well, not none, but Maryland wasn't that hard. Rutgers wasn't that hard. That was the worst Michigan team they'll probably play as long as they're in the Big Ten. Minnesota is the other one. Yeah, I mean, these were not games that they should have lost. So I think throwing the Notre Dame trip on top of that is what is really making them think, why do we need this? I thought Marcus Freeman, if you're reading between the lines, and maybe I'm doing it too much here, him saying we'll play them anytime, I thought was maybe like an olive branch, if you will. Okay, we're flexible. We will play you earlier in the year if that's what you want, if you don't want to come to South Bend in the middle of the winter. But it's a game that needs to
October.
Game that needs to stay put. I mean, that needs to be played. It needs to be played on campus. I mean, I just think there's very few left that's recognizable about the college football world. Notre Dame USC is one of them. It's been a very even rivalry. Now it's been a very streaky rivalry, but I believe they're 16-16 or whatever against each other over the last 32 meetings. And again, you could find long winning streaks for both teams in the middle of that. But it's a game that needs to be played. I would hate to see it go. I got killed on Twitter for saying Notre Dame did the same thing to Michigan. I was not equating Michigan to USC, but I'm just saying when conference moves come into the equation, schools kind of lose their marbles and just say we need flexibility. The scary thing for Notre Dame is if this were to happen, if this series did get dropped, the inventory becomes tricky for Notre Dame.
I agree.
Especially if Brian Kelly gets his wish and the SEC and Big Ten start playing each other every year. And if you're USC, then you're not just USC, but a Big Ten team that has 9 conference games, a 10th against the SEC. Why would you add Notre Dame? Now, again, Notre Dame's great for TV ratings. They're great for gate. I don't think they'd ever be completely boxed out, but the calculus becomes a lot trickier if you're Notre Dame in that department.
I agree with that. I wonder if there will be some re-engineering of the series where, like, I can appreciate if USC gets stuck in a situation where they're playing, it's a year where they've got 5 Big Ten home games and 4 Big Ten road games, and they also get Notre Dame at home. But then the flip side is when they play 4 Big Ten home games, they've got Notre Dame on the road, so they've got sort of 6 power conference. Like, I don't think it actually aligns that way, but and I'm not saying that I'm sympathetic to USC here. Like, they joined the Big Ten and should not be shocked that Purdue is in Indiana. Hello. But I can appreciate them like, maybe there's a different way to do this. But the correct answer cannot be the better way to do this is to not do it at all. I think it would be a shame, and I don't want to like clutch pearls or hop on a soapbox here, but like you said, there's very little about college football that's recognizable 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. USC Notre Dame is one of those things. So it's worth protecting.
No question about it. And yeah, I'll be curious to see how this unfolds. So Pat Forty reported that USC offered a 1-year extension while they figure their stuff out, so to speak. I'm a little surprised Notre Dame didn't sign that just to keep it an extra year. Although I guess if you're Notre Dame, you're thinking they're going to end it on their terms in their backyard in 2026 if that happened. But yeah, they figure it out. This is what these guys get paid to do on both sides. Like, figure it out. Like, it can't be neutral site. I really don't care when it's played, but it can't be neutral site. It has to be on campus. And it's a game that should always be played. And I just, we could get into all the SEC commentary out of Destin this past week when they did their league meetings, and a lot of coaches had a lot of different thoughts on schedules and things of that nature. But I don't subscribe to the fact, like, I get if you're USC last year, you had 9 Big Ten games plus LSU plus Notre Dame. Like, that's probably not great.
That was a ridiculous schedule.
You shouldn't schedule LSU. But I still don't subscribe to this fact that coaches have. Matt Rule, I think, became the face of this, but a lot of coaches have it of like, why would we play good non-conference games? The committee's shown that you don't care. I disagree with that completely.
Yeah.
I would also say, and it looks like common sense is going to prevail here, and that they're not going to be 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten SEC. But if that were to happen, who cares about non-conference games, right? Like, you're getting they're preseason games if you're the Big Ten and SEC. You're getting in if you're a top 4 team in your conference. It doesn't matter what you do against Notre Dame or Clemson or whomever. So that part of it I don't like. And I would argue non-conference helps more than hurts. I mean, why were we talking about South Carolina being a potential playoff team? Because they won at Clemson in the last game of the year. Right. That's the only reason they were in that discussion. And I'm fine with them being in that discussion. They went 9-3 with a tough schedule. I don't think they should have been in. But that was a classic case of them helping them. And Alabama saying we got to re-examine how we schedule. Well, like, you beat the crap out of a 5-7 Wisconsin team on the road. Like, that was your signature non-conference win. And it looked like a good game when you scheduled it at the time. It turned out not to be, but I don't think that should discourage you from, it's not like you played a gauntlet last year. You lost wire to wire to Vanderbilt and got killed by a 6-7 Oklahoma team. That's why you didn't get in. So they remind me of, when the SEC folks get together and they just air their grievances. Scott Strickland, the Florida AD, is talking about we shouldn't have a selection committee. Well, okay, like, give me a better idea, because every single sport has it. And there's not enough data to make it a metric-based thing off a 12-game regular season. Like, It's like the bikers in my neighborhood. They just took out a whole driving lane. They're ruining our neighborhood. It takes me 15 minutes to go to CVS instead of 5 right now. And guess who's still bitching more than anyone? The bikers. Give the SEC everything they want, and they're still going to complain about this, and this, and hand out packets about how hard it is to play an 8-game conference schedule and yada, yada, yada. Figure it out. I will say, and I know we got called to the principal's office for this, and I'm not surprised. Brian Kelly did say the Big Ten's the best right now. They won the last 2 national champions. That's who we're looking up to. We should play them more. Probably not the smartest thing to say when you're on a beach with all your colleagues. But again, if there's one guy in this business who does not give a you-know-what about public pushback, it's him. And I've always respected and appreciated him for that. And he's not wrong. Although I don't think, whole other tangent, I don't think Big Ten and SEC should be playing a 4 schedule every year.
No, definitely not. I guess other takeaways from Marcus, we talked a little bit about the quarterback situation, mostly about, hey, look, it's going to be the first start for either Kenny Minchey or CJ Carr, whoever gets it. And, how you create situations in practice, including like if you screw up, you're immediately benched. And he's like, it's not a great one, but like that's the kind of stuff we have to do. Very, very confident about the offensive line, the defense, certainly Jaden Greathouse as well. I asked a little bit about Jeremiah Love, kind of like what makes him the 1% of the 1% among running backs, and kind of had an interesting answer about, just like you don't get guys with speed and balance, but also power. You usually have 2 of the 3, and then they're lacking in the other one. But I think it was Tim Priester from Irish Illustrated when we got going. He was like, just as a statement of fact, told Marcus, like, this is the deepest team since Lou Holtz was here. And Marcus like didn't want to like say, yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I think that this team is probably deeper than they were last year. I don't know if they're as good at the top. And I asked about like, how do you replace the institutional knowledge of Kaiser, Watts, Mills, Cross, to a certain extent, Leonard? And he's like, yeah, that's a big concern. I do think like the leadership elements of this team, it's kind of this squishy, how do you define it? How do you characterize it? And like, so I asked for a specific example, and he talked about how, in the summer they divide up in these like kind of workout teams with Lauren Landau and training. And like, that goes back to Matt Bayless. And he's like, if someone on your team screws up, I'm not going to the guy who screwed up. I'm going to you, the captain of this team, to like, what the hell happened? Like, that's on you. So I'll be interested to sort of see how they sort of push the envelope that way with guys like Drake Bowen or Don Schuler. Name an offensive lineman could be. Do you try to do that with Jeremiah Love? I don't really know what they'll do, but it definitely something is kind of front and center with Freeman in terms of what he's looking at the offseason, what they need to get done in June and July before. I think they put out the media schedule yesterday. The first practice is July 31st. So it's basically exactly 2 months away.
Be here before you know it. I'm with you. I mean, I think he has a chance to be the deepest team they've had. And again, my biggest concern or question about this team is it's not going to be fixed or answered until we see them in week 1. It's the leadership, like you said. When you don't know where it's coming from and you need to work on that in the offseason, I wouldn't say it's concerning, but there's uncertainty there. Whereas last year's team obviously had it in droves, and that in some ways carried them as far as they went. I mean, they beat 2 teams that were deeper and more talented than them in the playoff to get to the national championship game. Also, as far as takeaways from what Marcus Freeman said, he did get asked about like, do you think about that Ohio State game and what do you think about? And he had a quote to the effect of like, when I'm alone lying in bed at night, I do think about like the regrets of that game and how we didn't play our best when our best was needed. But it doesn't, I thought he did a good job of like, I think about the journey and how proud I am of this group versus I think about the micro and, what we didn't do there. And I thought that was probably the appropriate way to phrase it with the way that team kind of rebounded last year and made the remarkable run they made. So I thought that was refreshing to hear. The other thing you mentioned, Jeremiah Love. Did anyone ask Marcus Freeman why he's wearing a sweater vest in the EA Sports trailer? There's a great thread No Context EA, the Twitter account, has all the screenshots of all the coaches. And if you want to laugh, just go. Like, it's hilarious. None of them really look all that great.
I am quite certain that people at Notre Dame saw the sweater vest and did not like it. And I think that Marcus Freeman may have been a little bit confused about why he was dressed like Jim Tressel or Chuck Martin in a post-game handshake with maybe Lane Kiffin. I don't know. It was kind of hard to tell based on the screenshot. But my hunch is that when the game comes out, Marcus Freeman may be dressed a little bit differently digitally than he was in the trailer.
I'm trying to find this Twitter account. It was so. Oh, I just found it now. Hold on. There's some great ones on here. An Akron player with a tire on his neck.
I like that one
for a celebration. Oh, here it is. The second one that comes up. There's Marcus Freeman. Looking very, very. I wouldn't say buff. Definitely wide. Look, all the coaches just look like Sark looks.
Ryan Day looked a little off.
Franklin actually looks kind of like him. Looks more like Keegan-Michael Key there than James Franklin himself.
I thought they got
Ryan Day looks terrible.
Spot on with Ryan. I mean, that beard is exactly.
He looks like his defensive coordinator. Looks like Matt Patricia. Maybe that is Matt Patricia. I don't know.
But you got to really nail the hair dye with the Just for Men with Ryan Day. And I thought they did a good job.
Just paint the beard on. Like it's actually should be the easiest thing for
black
these
hole black
for these graphic people.
But I'm trying to think of other things that popped out. I mean, we talked about recruiting a little bit. This was kind of an interesting conversation with in the general manager era. When you like a prospect, how do you get from like consensus of we like him to we're offering him? And I always thought like the head coach basically had 51% of the vote, regardless of how many other votes there were. And Freeman was like, no, actually, I'm not a big ego guy with this. Like, if I like a guy, but Mike Martin, like I say, he's a defensive back. Mike Martin doesn't like him. Mike Mickens doesn't like him. Chris Ash doesn't like him, but I love him. Like, we're not going to offer him. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting look at sort of the machinations of recruiting and how guys get offered and basically how that staff works together. Because I don't think in the past, like the recruiting staff had a whole ton of sway about we're going to offer this guy or not offer this guy. Maybe they could have pushed film in front of a coach a little bit more aggressively if they did like him, or been conservative if they didn't. But that I thought was kind of an interesting dynamic about how the program actually works.
A reminder to subscribe to The Independent on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Please leave a 5-star review, and please continue to subscribe and tune in to our live shows on our YouTube channel as well. Appreciate all the engagement we've gotten from that platform. And we'd like to thank our friends at Obvious Shirts. It's obviousshirts.com, OBVIOUSSHIRTS.com. Plenty of pod merch on there, crew necks, quarter zips, t-shirts, you name it. Appreciate all the swag. Appreciate seeing all of you guys at games and beyond rocking independent merch. Thanks to our friends at obviousshirts.com.
And also thanks to Roback.com, RHOBACK.com. I'm wearing it right now. Got the little dog on the shoulder. Great I love the hoodies, joggers, shorts, golf polos are kind of where it's at with them. They have officially licensed Notre Dame apparel, quarter zips as well. You can use promo code IRISH at roback.com for 20% off your first order. That's RHOBACK.com. Promo code IRISH for 20% off your first order.
This happened last week. I think it was last week. This week's been crazy with all the SEC headlines. Not insignificant playoff news for Notre Dame. Straight seeding, which is pretty incredible deal for these guys, considering all the understandable initial backlash that Jack Swarbrick and company got when the playoff got announced. And it was, oh, wait, Notre Dame can't get a bye in it. Again, I think last year proved that it actually works out pretty well for them more often than not. But straight seeding, Notre Dame can get a bye, not being in a conference. Like, took 1 year for that to go away. And I think most people will agree that like Arizona State and Boise State probably shouldn't have byes. It's not the NFL. But I also like it's the most college football thing ever to overreact to one season. And then we're going to go something different this year. And oh, by the way, in 2026, we're going to have a new format. Maybe 14 teams, maybe 16 teams, maybe automatic bids, maybe not. We don't know yet. And we're here in 2025. I'd like to see things play out over a longer period of time and see what works and what doesn't before we all freak out over one issue. But hey, Arizona State also came a deflection away from beating Texas and being in the semifinal last year. So that was actually a really good football team. And in my opinion, should have been seeded higher than Boise State, which means they would have got Penn State in a virtual home game in the Fiesta Bowl, which would have been a lot more interesting as well. But a great deal for Notre Dame. I mean, they didn't I remember I was reporting it last week and then I'm like, wait a minute, does this mean what I think it means? And everyone's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And no one seems all that upset about it either.
It, for one, I would love to see the playoff format continue on this track, like with the straight seeding more than just ripping it up after 1 year. Because, like you said, the sport seems to overreact to everything and like breakneck speed. But two, I sort of feel like Jack Swarbrick secretly built the exhaust port into the Death Star here, where it's like there is like I just imagine him over like a nice pour of Whistle Pig whiskey and thinking like there is no way these people are going to be able to stomach the seed confusion, who gets buys, who doesn't. And like, you know what's going to happen? We're going to have straight seeding. Like maybe he didn't think we were going to have straight seeding within 12 months, but it definitely feels like a smartest man in the room moment for Jack Swarbrick. Yeah, and I got to hand it to him because I think he could probably just like, I'm going to make the system and I'm going to watch it just like fall apart within 12 months. And Notre Dame's going to be one of the bigger beneficiaries, not just for straight seeding and the bye, but like, you know, once you get to the 14-16 team world where there's likely going to be language in the contract where Notre Dame is an automatic bid if they're ranked in the top 14 or the top 16, like access to the national championship tournament is only getting better for Notre Dame. And credit to the guy that helped put together the architecture for this championship, because the ball is rolling down the hill here. And like, I think Notre Dame is just going to benefit over and over again to the point where maybe we'll get to a position where people stop asking when's Notre Dame going to join a conference, because there is absolutely no point to it anymore for Notre Dame joining a conference. But never mind the fact the way these conferences seem to behave when left up to their own devices.
Well, people ask that if USC drops Notre Dame, because again, the scheduling conundrum will come, even if I don't agree that they need to join one then. Yeah, Jack Swarbrick deserves a ton of credit for that. I think you're probably right as far as him seeing the big picture with that. He did not. I just remember we asked him a gazillion times before the playoff took hold, like, are you sure about this? Like, don't you think your team's at a disadvantage? They don't get to buy. And he was unfazed by all of it. And again, it worked out pretty well for the non-buy teams, especially Notre Dame last year. Just think we had this last year, Pete. I think it would have been Notre Dame Clemson, because we don't get enough of those games anymore. In a first round playoff game. Getting Indiana so close, I think it was cool. I will say though, and I don't know like the inner machinations of who's saying this, who's saying that, but I texted another commissioner when that got announced, and I said, wow, pretty sweet deal for Notre Dame if you ask me. And I think the biggest question we all had about Pete Bavacqua when he took over wasn't like, can he be a good AD for Notre Dame? I think he's a smart guy, he's an accomplished guy, he knows sports, he knows media, he worked with them a lot, he knows the place. Like, not that it's an easy job, but I don't question his capabilities to do it. I think the biggest question was everything you just mentioned, right? Like Jack Swarbrick was so good at managing up, so to speak, and getting Notre Dame a seat at that table and fighting for Notre Dame and making sure they were an independent power. And this, I want to pull it up here. We'll keep him anonymous, but this commissioner replied to me, yes, good deal for Notre Dame in general with the accommodations that they have as an independent. Having said all that, I give Pete Bavacqua a lot of credit. That guy fights in the room based on what is best for college football. It would be very easy for him to sit quiet, knowing that the system continues to benefit Notre Dame. I replied, and he said he's very strong. That was refreshing to hear. Haven't gotten to know the new AD at Notre Dame as much as I knew Jack Swarbrick. I'm not sure if you have or not. I wouldn't say he's a mystery man, because he's out there and we all know who he is and what he does, but you never know how the inner workings happen away from campus in these larger gatherings. And we saw last week, or this week, I think, Greg Sankey really pushing back on the good of the game. I don't need to be lectured on this and blah, blah, blah. Other conferences can do that. Like, very interesting to hear that unprompted response from another commissioner about Pete Babakwa and his kind of holistic view of college football, while knowing he's got his school in a great position right now.
Yeah, I agree, and I wrote about sort of the ACC relationship around the Virginia game last November, and talked to Jim Phillips about it, and talked to a couple of ACC ADs just on background a bit. Like, am I hearing this right? Or like, could you essentially confirm some of this? And like, Bavakwa came across as very impressive to those ADs in terms of not just like his background being beneficial to Notre Dame right now, or to the ACC right now, and college football right now with like the media rights deal, but just like as a willing participant, like not somebody who's coming in and just like, I'm going to sit back and just observe because like I don't really need to be an active participant here because Notre Dame's in a great spot. That's refreshing to hear because, like, man, there are not enough people in college athletics with that point of view. Some of them are commissioners of major conferences and they do not have that point of view. So it's refreshing to hear like somebody in a very, very advantageous position doesn't need to just sort of bunker in and like, all right, I'm going to protect our position and maximize revenue to every last dollar, like opposed to like, hey, what's good? Like, why is college football great? Let's start with that question and see how we can come to an answer. Like we were talking about the EA Sports game. Like you watch the trailer and, Metallica's in there now and you're like, oh man, like I love college football. And then you juxtapose that about the latest Ross Dellinger story about like backroom commissioner AD dealings. And you're just like, God, I hate college football. So it's just college football is great because of the Saturdays. And God, it'd be great if we had some more people running college football who kept the important thing, because it doesn't seem like that's always the case.
No, we need to protect those Saturdays. I'm not saying that means contract or don't expand the playoff because I think the more games, the better, provided that it's feasible. But again, you don't want to feel like it's a rigged system.
You're not into the
4-4,
the 4-4-4-2, or the top 8 SEC teams play the top 8 Big Ten teams, but in reverse order on championship weekend, and then those 8 winners get automatic bids because that's not confusing at all.
Well, and then again, I think that completely cheapens the regular season. It boxes out much of the country from following the sport. And friend of the program, your colleague Ralph Russo, I think had a Twitter thread the other day. The SEC handed out a packet to media members at their spring meetings, basically with all this data showing why they're the best conference. And that's fine. But Ralph pointed out, like, yeah, they are the best. Like, your 6 and 7 best teams are probably better than like Iowa and Illinois or whatever, or Michigan State. But I don't need like an Illinois Florida argument to know whether Ohio State or Georgia deserves the number 1 seed or whatever, right? Like to determine a national champion. I don't need that. Like, yes, the Big Ten's top heavier the last 2 years. The SEC is probably deeper the last, forever. That's missing the point. Like, you're just so in your face about how good we are, how deep we are. You're still only playing 8 conference games, and all of your 9-3 teams that got left out last year played FCS teams in their non-conference. And again, outside of the Clemson, South Carolina game, which helped South Carolina, none of you played great non-conference games. Ole Miss signature non-conference win was a road win at Wake Forest. Like it's you don't need to be so in our face about it. And I just think these people complain too much. Again, I think in some ways it's great PR. I think that conference is a lot more unified than any other conferences, and they do a great job of taking the Memorial Day weekend quiet news cycle and absolutely dominating it, while the Big Ten does no media during theirs the week before. But I mean, it really does just mean more down there because of just how overbearing they are with all this stuff in your face. And again, I'm not sure it's great for the SEC. I don't think it's great for the larger college football world. One other thing on that note, I was talking to someone, close to Notre Dame, and unprompted, this individual brought up, like, amid all the Big Ten SEC world domination, we think the ACC needs to be a little more proactive in separating itself from the Big 12 because they get grouped together right now And if you look at the Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma, there's no comparison whatsoever between what the ACC has done on the football field and what the Big 12 has done on the football field. And I don't necessarily disagree, and I get why Notre Dame would feel this way. But it was interesting to hear that spoken out loud, and it made me think about things a little bit differently as well.
Yeah, because it's who's the Florida State, Miami, Clemson of the Big 12.
Well, I'd almost equate it to the Big 10 SEC in some ways. Like the Big 12 is deep. You never know who's going to win it. They've got 7th or 8th place teams that are capable of beating everyone, whereas the ACC usually has a huge drop off right in the middle there. But no question, nationally, the ACC has been much more relevant. And it's not like Oklahoma and Texas were winning. Texas, especially in the last decade or so of their Big 12 membership, was not really doing much at the national level. Oklahoma was, although they weren't winning national titles. But I mean, Clemson 2 national titles, Florida State a national title and a playoff berth. It's certainly top heavier than the Big 12 has been.
Yeah. And I mean, look, Notre Dame helps that, right? I mean, we talked about the Clemson, not just the Clemson series, but playing everybody else, gives them an anchor. And I don't, even they got Clemson, South Carolina is a great series too. So that's, I guess I kind of agree with that, maybe the league should be a clear number 3 opposed to like in the second tier with the Big 12. I mean, you've got Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson too. Like, I mean, come on, what more could you want in that conference?
I've not watched the special of Belichick and Dabo yet. Maybe I should. I don't know.
I just saw an outtake about wrestling, and it reminded me a little bit of the Brian Kelly Dabo Sweeney press conference from the Cotton Bowl, where like I think it was the takeaway was Brian Kelly has learned that a joint press conference with Dabo Sweeney involves a lot of listening. I think Bill Belichick was there with his sleeves rolled up and like didn't have a chance to say a whole lot. Who knows? That'll be fun. I need to watch that though.
I can confirm through back channel conversations that's the exact takeaway Brian Kelly had about dealing with Dabo Sweeney during that period of time when it felt like they were playing most years. I saw another one. It was a Modern Family clip of I'm gonna get all the names wrong, but it's one of the kids having a friend come over who was a cool kid, and he's just going gaga over Sofia Vergara. Is that the woman's name? And it was like the old husband is Bill Belichick. Sophia is Jordan Hudson. This is a cool recruit who otherwise would not be looking at North Carolina coming in for a visit. But you did bring up professional wrestling, and I forget where I read this. I want to properly credit them if I can. They equated an automatic bid or a 4 automatic bid playoff to professional wrestling as far as like the fix being in and it already being predetermined. And that's not a bad analogy, I got to say. Like we like wrestling for different reasons than we do college football. And having everything already baked in before the season begins, it's just I just can't imagine anyone enjoying that. Like even Iowa fans, like, do you want to go like and get your tails kicked in by a good Alabama team or something? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just not to use those 2 examples, but I just there's nothing attractive about that to me. It's sports. Like, we play the games.
Yeah, and again, it kind of gets back to the let's protect the Saturdays for what they are, because they're all freaking awesome, and that's like whether they are Notre Dame, Miami, or heck, I mean, I'm looking forward to Notre Dame at Pittsburgh because there's
50th anniversary of Tony Dorsett's 303-yard game.
I was just say like Pat Narduzzi's going to do something.
Our boy EJ is no longer there to save him from himself.
Yeah, the 10-year anniversary of Pat Narduzzi refusing to double cover Will Fuller. That's how I remember the series. But just like that part's awesome. And like Notre Dame is. I don't know if so I asked Marcus Freeman about like the durability of Notre Dame and, as being at the adult table essentially. And, he talked about recruiting and all that. Like, do you feel like even though they didn't get over the line, it feels more sustainable now than it did you covered 2012. I've covered more than that. Like the Brady Quinn 05-06 drop off years. It all feels like a lot more sustainable to me.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's more parity in college football first and foremost. So I think it's not easier, but it's the idea of a Notre Dame team making a deep playoff run is aside from the fact that we just saw it, it just seems a lot more plausible and realistic than it did in the 4-team era. And the recruiting and the personnel they're bringing in. And again, I don't want to make this a Marcus Freeman, Brian Kelly thing. I think Marcus Freeman has a lot of advantages from a university standpoint that Brian Kelly didn't, as far as transfers and bigger rosters, et cetera, et cetera. But certainly to see a coach in his third year get these guys to rise to the occasion, play at their best when their best was needed, and make that deep run. And again, we didn't know if he had this in him. We thought he did. We thought this program did. We thought they could make a playoff run last year, but you lose NIU the same way you lost to Marshall and Stanford, and the questions come up again. And I think the proof is in the pudding from their run last year, and just from the way they're reloading right now. I mean, you're not that Brian Kelly or previous coaches ever used the word rebuilding or anything like that, but you knew in some years they're probably going to take a step back this year. Oh, they lost this guy. We don't know how they're going to be. Now, I mean, we don't know how they're going to be, but I mean, we're talking about hypothetically this being the deepest roster since the Holtz years, and they're coming off a national championship berth where they just lost a lot of people who were responsible for getting them there. So yeah, I mean, I think between all that, again, the way the university is investing, Marcus Freeman getting a contract extension. I got the tax forms last week. I printed. By the way, I don't think we've recorded since this.
No.
I want to make sure I got this number right. Al Golden, this would have been in his second year at Notre Dame, made, where is it? $1.6 million.
Okay.
Best bargain in college football.
Right. Yeah. Which they rectified which will reflect on next year's tax forms.
Yeah. But I think he made half of what Jim Knowles is making. I know 2 years as an attorney in college football, but he made essentially half of what Jim Knowles is making now at Penn State. Not because Notre Dame was being cheap about it, just because the guy outperformed his deal.
Right. Yeah. That was the market value for a NFL position coach who was I don't want to use the term failed college head coach, but like certainly not a super successful one. What he did at Temple, great. Miami may have been some institutional issues there as well. But yeah, and then when Notre Dame needed to step up, they stepped up. So full credit to them for doing that. As we wrap up, if you're on our YouTube stream, thanks for joining us with the video part of it. You've got your NBA Jam shirt on. So I'm a Timberwolves fan via my son, who's a big Ant guy. Will the Knicks pull this out? Because by the time people listen to this, they may have already been eliminated. But how are you feeling about going into Game 6?
I'm the most like I can relate to all of you Notre Dame fans as you were during the playoff your playoff run, because I'm just like the most fatalistic. Oh, we stink. Oh, like I was ready to turn the TV off in Game 3 when they fell behind.
Yeah,
20.
didn't you tweeted out break up the team in Game 3, which they won?
I said build the franchise, and it worked because Freezing Cold Takes retweeted me after they won, and I was like, reverse jinx works every time. I did not turn the TV off though.
Yeah. Who is on your NBA Jam shirt, by the way? Which players are featured?
Ewing and Starks. From that era. I've got plenty more where that came from. I got my 6-year-old a Jalen Brunson jersey that she's been wearing a lot. And this is a reflection on my parenting, whether it's good or bad is in the eye of the beholder. But she's been watching all the games with me and getting really into it. Like I've been writing the scores on pieces of paper and sliding them under her door when she wakes up in the morning. But it would have been Game 5 of the Boston series, a game they lost. And again, she's 6 and she's a girl. And that game, I think, was tied at halftime, and the Celtics run away in the third quarter. And we're watching on the couch, but she's like kind of in and out of it. She's playing a board game. And at one point, she looks up, and earmuffs, if you're listening to this, she casually mouths, "Fuck, Dad, look at the scoreboard." And I'm trying really hard not to overreact. And I said, "Excuse me." And she screams, "Fuck, we're losing." And that's okay. That's what I thought you said. Let's not speak that way. I don't know where you would have gotten that kind of language from while watching a sporting event. I mean, that just is not like me at all, clearly. So yeah, I've reeled her in for better or for worse. I've gotten a lot of from the other room from my wife, like, "You're not at the Garden. They can't hear you when you scream at the TV." I'm like, "You just don't get it, do you? You just don't." So yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. I will not be there. If it was a potential clincher for the Knicks, I would have absolutely made the drive, but I'm not going there with the possibility of elimination and humiliation coming up at that. Might need to take a second mortgage out of the house if they make the finals and head out to New York for that. But sorry about your Timberwolves. More accurately, sorry about your kids, Timberwolves.
Yeah. I'm hooked. Like I had been out on the NBA for like 20 years and got sucked back into it via my 12-year-old. And I gotta say, like, I'm really enjoying it. I can't believe how much NBA basketball I'm watching. It's good
Playoffs
stuff.
are great. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and defend the regular season where there's so many people sitting out, but yeah, it's been fun. Like I haven't felt this way about the Knicks since I was probably my daughter's age, as far as like every game matters and they might have a chance. I will also say my mother's a Chicago native, diehard Bulls fan, and that was a terrible time for me to be a Knicks fan and a great time for her to be a Bulls fan. So like I have like mental torture from every year of the Bulls eliminating the Knicks and winning it all. So it's just like, just give me one championship, as unlikely as that seems right now. And like, you could have it all. Like, thanks. This was great. Build a statue of Jalen Brunson. We're excited. They might burn the city down, and I might be featured in a Side Talk NYC video, but we'll see.
Be a good time. All right. On that note, Wolves not back. We're still doing it for the Burrows. And
hey, yes, sirs is a very sexist T-shirt for Indiana to be wearing. Yes. Caitlin Clark country, all right?
It was funny. My kid had an AAU tournament in Indianapolis, and is it John Halliburton was there just hanging out.
It's the only game he's allowed to go to.
Yeah, I guess he had to watch some basketball.
He didn't attack your kid after he won?
No, I don't. He wasn't overly invested in the U11 AAU stuff I was watching. But anyway, on that note, Matt and I will be back probably in the next couple of weeks. We've got some guests kicking around to kind of get us through the summer, talk a little bit more college football. So until our next episode in June, summer has definitely arrived. He's Matt. I'm Pete. Thanks for being with us on the latest episode of The Independent.